The galaxy was never quiet, but on that day, every listening station heard the same strange signal. It began as a faint whisper in the dark, a pulse of sound that repeated every 12 seconds. At first, the operators thought it was just a damaged beacon drifting in deep space, maybe a lost cargo ship calling for rescue. But then the signal changed. It became sharper, faster, and almost angry, as if something was trying to be heard over a great distance. In the Galactic Council's central hall, ambassadors leaned over their translators, trying to decode the strange pattern. The room was tense. Then, without warning, the signal shifted again, and the words came through in perfect, simple speech. "We stand alone, do not interfere." The voice was human. No one had heard such a clear, deliberate transmission from Earth in decades. The hall fell into shocked silence. In a dark corner of the council chamber, an elder of the Dravar species leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He had lived long enough to remember the last time humanity had spoken like this. Time 3 colonies had burned and an entire war fleet had vanished without a trace. Around the galaxy, communication hubs replayed the human message again and again. The words were not shouted, but they carried the weight of a warning. Some species laughed nervously, calling it a bluff. Others felt something colder, a memory of how humans had once been described, Deathworlders. Dangerous survivors who never gave up in the outer systems. Alien scouts were already turning their ships toward Sol, curious to see what the humans were doing. One such ship, the Sarai, drifted at the edge of Earth's system, its crew scanning for weapons or fleets. They saw nothing at first, but then, on their screens, the power readings began to spike. It started in the oceans, where deep-sea stations hummed with strange energy. Then it moved to the skies, where entire satellite networks went offline at the same time. Cities dimmed one by one, their lights going out as if the humans had decided to plunge themselves into darkness. The scanners showed they were not powerless. In fact, they were building up more energy than ever recorded on the planet. On the Sarai's bridge, the captain whispered, "This is not preparation for war. This is something else." His crew watched as massive shadows passed over the clouds, too high and too fast to be normal aircraft.
Yes, database.
The shapes did not match any known human ship. Some moved like ships, others like living things. The council scientists who received the Sarai's data argued over what they were seeing. Some thought it was atmospheric interference. Others thought the humans had created new stealth ships. But deep down, the oldest among them began to suspect. The truth, the humans had been hiding something for years. Hours passed. The signal from Earth stopped, but the strange energy continued to rise. Across 5 light years, every listening post focused on Sol. Then, just when the watchers began to think nothing would happen, the pulse came. It was not a weapon blast. It was a single, deep, resonant boom that seemed to roll out of the planet itself. The sound was felt more than heard, a vibration in the bones. On the Sarai, the crew clutched their heads as their comm systems sparked and failed. In the council's data center, screens went black one after another. The boom knocked out every listening station within 5 light years. Ships lost navigation for hours. Entire planetary networks fell silent. The few who still had working sensors watched as a faint ripple spread outward from Earth, like the aftershock of some unseen explosion. But nothing was destroyed, not yet. It was as if the humans had reached out and tapped the galaxy on the shoulder hard enough to make sure everyone noticed. In the darkness, Elder Dravar sat alone in his quarters, replaying the human words. In his mind, we stand alone. Do not interfere. He felt the old fear again, the one his people had buried after the last war. He sent a single private message to his homeworld. They are awake. The Galactic Council had always treated the treaty with Earth as a fragile thing. A paper shield against a predator they did not fully understand. For 50 years, that paper shield had held. The humans had agreed not to build certain weapons, not to expand their fleets beyond a set limit, and not to touch forbidden sciences. In return, the galaxy left them alone. But now, after the signal and the pulse that had silenced 5 light-years of space, it was clear the treaty was dead. In the council's grand chamber, representatives argued in panicked voices. Some demanded immediate military action. Others warned that moving against Earth could trigger something they could not control. The footage from the Sarai played again on the vast display walls, showing dark silhouettes in Earth's skies and the strange energy building in their oceans. A scout ship from the Zeller Dominion had tried to approach Earth just hours ago. Its crew had sent back a single, fragmented message before vanishing. They see us. There was no explosion, no debris field, nothing to suggest a battle. The ship was simply gone, as if erased from existence. The council demanded answers. That was when a quiet but nervous scientist from the Lauren species stepped forward. She had been analyzing the data from the Sarai and other long-range sensors. Her voice shook as she explained, "The cores in those human ships are not reactors. They are contained singularities." The chamber erupted in disbelief. Contained black holes were a banned technology across the galaxy, outlawed after an accident centuries ago had consumed 2 entire star systems. No species had dared attempt it again, till now. While the council shouted over each other, a faint ripple passed through their systems. Every screen flickered to black, then returned with a single image, a human face, calm and expressionless. The voice that followed was deep, steady, and unmistakably human. "Stand back, or stand." Against us, the message ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. In the quiet that followed, the elder Drevar spoke. His voice was low, but it carried. "You think they are threatening us now? You have not yet seen them threatened. You have not yet seen them fight for survival." Its warning was ignored by some, but it settled like ice in the minds of others. Meanwhile, in the dark reaches of the Sol system, the human fleet was moving. New warships emerged from shadowed shipyards on the far side of the moon, each one carrying that glowing, unstable core. In deep-sea hangars, massive constructs rose from the water and vanished into the night sky. Every move was precise, silent, and without hesitation. The humans did not broadcast their intentions. They did not explain themselves. They were preparing for something. The rest of the galaxy could only guess what it might be. Far from Earth, the captain of the Sarai, now hiding in the asteroid belt, sent one final transmission to the council before cutting all contact. "We watched them break the treaty with a single decision," he said. "They are not building weapons. They are building an answer." Then the transmission ended, and his ship disappeared into the shadows. The Coalition fleet gathered in the empty stretch of space between Proxima and Sol. A line of warships from 6 species, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Each ship carried the best weapons its people could make, from plasma lances that could melt moons to rail cannons that hurled asteroids like spears. They had been sent not to destroy Earth, but to push it back into submission, to remind humanity of the treaty they had broken. The admirals told themselves this would be a show of force, not a war. Deep down, many of them did not believe their own words. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, sensors locked on the blue and green planet ahead, and they crossed the invisible line of Earth's outer defense perimeter. They saw nothing, no fighters, no stations, no minefields. It looked empty. Then the order came from the lead flagship. "Fire a warning volley." Dozens of bright streaks of light shot toward Earth, missiles and energy beams cutting through the void. They never arrived. Midway through flight, the missiles simply vanished, disappearing like stones falling into a lake. The energy blasts twisted and bent, curving away into strange arcs until they dissolved into nothing. Panic crackled over the comms. "Weapons malfunction," shouted one captain. Another argued, "No, they still live. They just can't hit anything." The truth came from a grim-voiced commander of the Arvan fleet. "They are bending space." No one answered him at first. Everyone knew the technology he spoke of, gravitational warping, was forbidden, banned by every major power because of how unstable it was. It could fold space like paper, making attacks miss or vanish entirely. But it could also collapse ships, worlds, even stars. No one had dared to use it in over 1,000 years. In the chaos, a lone frigate managed to capture a strange reading. At the edge of their scanners, they detected faint ripples forming in the void, like invisible walls between the fleet and Earth. It was not a shield. It was a maze of bent reality, trapping the fleet in a pocket of safe but useless space. Admirals ordered a retreat, but the moment they turned their ships, the ripples shifted, locking them in place. That was when the human voice came. It did not come through the fleet's channels. It came directly into their ship systems. Bypassing encryption? "You are still alive because we allow it," the voice said calmly. "This is our defense mode. You have not seen us angry yet." On the flagship of the Zorn Alliance, an alien, Commander stared at the empty view ahead, his hands shaking. He had fought in 10 wars, faced pirates, assassins, and even planetary extinction events, but nothing had ever made his heart race like those words. All around him, the fleet systems flickered, navigation scrambled, weapons locked into permanent safety mode. One by one, their ships turned against their captain's orders and began drifting backward, pushed by invisible forces like leaves on a current. When the fleet had been moved far enough, the gravitational ripples collapsed. The void became still again. As the ship scrambled to recover, a new image appeared in the blackness of space, a massive timer, burning bright in alien and human numerals, hanging in orbit above Earth. It counted down from 72 hours. Every observer in the galaxy could see it. In the Galactic Council's chamber, no one spoke. They all understood what it meant. Humanity had not struck back. Humanity had not destroyed the fleet. But now they had started a countdown, and the galaxy had no idea what would happen when it reached zero. The timer in Earth's orbit kept ticking, its burning numbers visible from halfway across the system. 72 hours. 71. 70. The sight alone sent fear through every species that could see it. No message came with it, no demands. Just the relentless countdown. In the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, leaders shouted over each other, trying to decide what it meant. Some insisted it was a bluff, meant to scare them into backing down. Others whispered about human legend stories, of weapons so terrible that they were never used, only counted down to. The elder Dravar sat silent, his gaze fixed on the image of the timer. He had seen this before, long ago, during a war his people had tried to forget. The humans had used a countdown then, too, and when it reached zero, the war was over in less. Then a day, the Council sent their best negotiators to Earth. Sleek diplomatic ships crossed into the Sol system, broadcasting messages of peace, offers of compromise, promises to restore the treaty. Not one transmission was answered. Instead, alien spies hiding among human colonies sent back strange reports. Earth's factories were working day and night, but they were not producing weapons. Instead, massive segments of curved metal were being launched into orbit, locking together into enormous rings. At first, the observers thought these rings were orbital weapons aimed outward, ready to fire on any approaching fleet. But then the truth became clear. The rings were aimed inward, toward Earth itself. This revelation sent a fresh wave of panic through the Council. Why would humans point such structures at their own world? Were they preparing to destroy themselves rather than surrender? Or was there something beneath the planet's surface they meant to release? Theories spread like fire. Some believed it was a suicide move meant to deny enemies a prize. Others believed Earth was hiding a weapon so large it could not be launched, only unleashed from within. In the shadow of the moon, more human ships were gathering. Not sleek warships this time, but strange, angular craft bristling with unknown machinery. They moved with slow, deliberate precision, sliding into position around the rings like pieces of a puzzle. The energy readings from the planet continued to climb far beyond what was needed for any conventional weapon. Sensors showed faint tremors running through Earth's crust, as if something deep below was waking. With 40 hours left, the first visual proof arrived. The atmosphere above certain regions of Earth began to glow, a pale blue haze spreading slowly across the skies. The glow thickened until it was visible even to the naked eye from orbit, like the entire planet was wrapped in shimmering glass. Every alien who saw it felt the same cold thought. This was not a defense. This This was preparation for something none of them understood. 30 hours. 20. The council's debates grew desperate. Some urged a full-scale strike before the countdown ended, hoping to disrupt whatever the humans were building. Others warned that attacking now could trigger the very thing they feared. The Elder Javar's voice cut through the noise. You strike now, you will not stop them. You will only give them a reason to finish what they've started. His warning was ignored by the younger leaders, but his words spread quietly among those who had already begun to fear the truth. When the countdown hit 3 hours, the glowing atmosphere brightened to a deep electric blue. The orbital rings hummed with power, streams of light racing along their edges. Every human ship in orbit turned toward the planet, engines off, drifting in complete silence. And still, no one knew what would happen when the timer reached 0. With less than 3 minutes on the timer, every scanner in the Sol system was locked on Earth. The glowing blue haze around the planet pulsed like a heartbeat, each throb growing stronger. The orbital rings shone like burning halos. They're massive, segments vibrating with energy so intense that even alien sensors began to overload. Across the galaxy, crowds gathered around public screens, holding their breath as the numbers ticked down. On the moon, in deep space, on hidden outposts far. From Earth, human soldiers stood at their stations, silent and still, waiting. The final seconds flashed. 10, 9, 8. A low hum spread through the void, a sound that was felt more in the bones than in the ears. 3, 2, 1. The rings fired. It's not as weapons, not as beams of destruction, but as anchors, massive gravitational locks that dug into the very fabric of space. The blue haze around Earth flared to blinding white, and then reality itself bent. The stars behind the planet warped and twisted, lines of light curving where no curve should exist. A hole began to open above Earth, not black like the void, but a swirling, cosmic storm of colors no living mind had ever seen. The rift widened with a slow, deliberate pull, as if something on the other side was pushing its way through. Then it emerged. It was not alive, at least not in any way the galaxy understood. A machine, the size of a small moon, forged from black metal older than the Council itself. It moved with terrifying precision, vast arms unfolding from its core, each one tipped with glowing points of light. The alien watchers scrambled to compare it to anything in their archives, but nothing matched. Humans had a name for it, though. The Guardian. For a long moment, the Guardian simply hung in space above Earth, its surface shifting with strange geometric patterns. Then, without warning, every ship, station, and colony in 100 light-years received the same transmission. It was not from Earth. It was from the Guardian itself. "You threatened my children," it said in a voice deeper than thunder. There was no anger in it, no roar urged to cold, absolute truth that made every listener's skin crawl. Alien fleets scattered. Some went into hiding, others fled their systems entirely. No one dared move toward Earth now. The Guardian turned, slowly scanning the void as if measuring each distant star. Yet it made no move to attack. It simply waited, on a hidden command deck deep below Earth's surface. A human officer stood before a wall of screens, watching the Guardian's arrival. His face was calm, his voice steady as he spoke into a secure channel. Phase 2. Begin. Across the planet, new orders were given, and massive underground hangars began to open. Guardian had come as a warning, but what followed would be humanity's answer. The Guardian hung above Earth like a silent moon, its vast shadow stretching across oceans and continents. For 3 days after its arrival, no alien fleet dared to approach. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the machine would move, if the humans would strike, or if the countdown had simply been a show of power. But then Phase 2 began. It started quietly, with a faint distortion in space above the Guardian. A second rift appeared, smaller but no less strange, its edges rippling like water. From it emerged another machine sleeker, longer, with wings that glowed a deep crimson. Then came a third, a fourth, each different in design but carrying the same impossible presence. By the time the seventh passed through, the truth was undeniable. The Guardian was not alone. The Galactic Council met in emergency session, their chamber heavy with fear. No one spoke of war now. Instead, the question was survival. What would it take to keep humanity from turning those machines outward? Old grudges were forgotten, rivalries abandoned. The Council's leader, a hardened warrior from the Zoran Alliance, stood and declared, "We will surrender our authority to Earth. They will decide the new law." The words tasted like ash, but no one opposed them. Back in the Sol system, human warships moved into formation alongside the 7 Guardians. They did not prepare for an attack on the Council. Instead, they deployed fleets to the edges of known space, positioning themselves like a wall against some unseen horizon. In secret briefings, human commanders explained to their closest allies what the Council had never suspected: Earth's aggression was not aimed at the galaxy. Something else was coming. Something older, faster, and far more dangerous than any current power. The Guardians had not been built for conquest. It had been built for defense. When the treaty was rewritten, it was no longer between the Council and Earth. It was between Earth and the galaxy. Every world that joined was promised protection, but also bound by the same simple law: no harm to humanity. Those who refused were left in silence, their systems marked as unsafe to enter. None dared to test what would happen if the rule was broken. In the years that followed, stories spread like wildfire. Tales of the day the galaxy feared the Death Worlders at last. Of the moment when humans stood alone and still made the stars bend to their will. But those who had been close to the event, those who had seen the timer, the rift, and the 7 machines, knew a deeper truth. Humanity's greatest show of strength had not been the day of the countdown. It had not even been the day the Guardians appeared. The greatest strength was that they had done it all without firing a single shot, far beyond the edge of explored space. In the cold dark between galaxies, a different kind of signal stirred, one that the Guardians were already turning toward. On Earth, in a quiet war room, a single human officer looked at the incoming data and whispered, "When they arrive, we'll be ready." But somewhere above the planet, the Guardians shifted, their vast forms aligning toward the void, waiting for the real enemy to appear.